Now, to go back for a moment to Jeremy Bentham and utilitarianism, there's a big difference between Bentham on the one hand and Aristotle, Aquinas and Kant on the other. Those three all thought that there were some kinds of action you should never do, no matter what the consequences. Whereas for Bentham and the utilitarian tradition, it's the consequences that are the test of whether something is a right action or not. That is, I think, an important difference that still survives in contemporary moral debate between some absolutists who say there are certain things one should never do. Torture and rape, many people would say nothing will justify those, whereas if you're a thoroughgoing utilitarian, you will say, no, in certain circumstances, fortunately very rare, torture and rape may be justified.
You mentioned that Aquinas' lower-level principles are actually quite extensive, but I wonder if you could give a flavour of what they're like.
Well, one important issue which he often discusses is the role of conscience, whether you should always obey your conscience. A lot of people have thought that as long as you were obeying your conscience, everything was all right. He says this isn't so. Your conscience may well be ill-informed, and you have a duty to better inform it. He says, certainly, if you disobey your conscience, you're doing something wrong. But the mere fact that you're obeying your conscience doesn't necessarily mean that what you're doing is right. This is relevant, I think, to a number of contemporary issues. I think a lot of people believe that Mr. Blair, when he went to war in Iraq, was obeying his conscience. But Aquinas, and I agree with him, would say this doesn't settle the question whether he did right or not.
Aquinas is best known probably as a theologian.
Yeah.
Is there a way of following Aquinas' philosophy without committing to Christianity?
Oh, indeed. Some of the best recent writers on Aquinas have been people who were not or were no longer Christians. Aquinas himself makes it easy to follow him without accepting the Christian premises. In the history of philosophy, Aquinas was the first to make a sharp distinction between two kinds of theology, what he calls revealed theology and natural theology. Revealed theology will take as its premises some sacred book or authoritative teaching of the church or something. But he says there's another kind of theology, which is in fact a branch of philosophy, which avoids the use of those premises, even if it thinks they're true, but starts only with things which can be proved by reason without any appeal to an alleged revelation. He wrote a book, the Summa Contra Gentiles, the summary of teaching for the purpose of infidels. The Summa Contra Gentes was expressly designed to be used in dialogue with Jews and Muslims. And he says at the beginning of this, when you're writing with Jews against Jews, of course you can quote the Hebrew Bible, but we don't have any books that we share with the Muslims. And so the best thing to do, whether you're dealing with Jews or with Muslims, is just to appeal to natural reason and common sense.
From the way you've described Aquinas, I would suggest that you are quite sympathetic to his approach as contrasted with utilitarianism.
Yes, indeed. Yes, I am. First of all, I think that his general approach to ethics is correct, giving importance to happiness and virtue rather than law. I also think that his treatment of particular lower-level issues is often very sensitive. His style of writing is based very much on the medieval disputation, an academic exercise in which two graduate students would argue with each other and then the professor would settle the debate between them, very much like the adversarial practice of the common law courts. And I think probably it's the courts that were imitating the scholastics rather than the other way round. But this adversarial style of philosophy, I think, is rather a good style. And Aquinas always begins his treatment of a topic by setting out the position opposite to the one that he's going to defend and presenting arguments for it. You know, when you look up Aquinas to see, is there a God, the first thing you read is apparently not. It's a very good intellectual discipline, I think, to make sure that you think, now what's to be said on the other side? And his whole philosophical approach is wonderfully judicious. He's always trying to balance arguments on both sides. If he's arguing with somebody, he usually tries to make them come out as well as they can, even if he's going to disagree with them. I think that Aquinas today deserves to be treated by us in the way that he treated Aristotle. He learnt a great deal from Aristotle. He was never afraid to contradict Aristotle, but did it in a civil way. And I think that we should behave to him the way he behaved to Aristotle.
Most students studying philosophy come across Aquinas in the theological context or in the context of the philosophy of religion. Yet there are signs, perhaps, that he's becoming a more important philosopher today than he was 10 years ago.
I think that's right. I was just this morning starting to review a massive history of ethics by Terry Owen, who is the professor of ancient philosophy in Oxford. And I was very impressed to see that he gives about twice as many pages to the ethics of Aquinas as he does to the ethics of Aristotle. I think he's probably right to do so, but it would have been hard to imagine this happening 10 years ago.
Anthony Kenny, thank you very much.
Thank you. I've enjoyed that.
And you can hear more Philosophy Bites at www.philosophybites.com.